Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to 10-Minute Wellbeing Tips for Managers. I'm joined today by Dimitra. I'm going to let her introduce herself, including her last name, so I don't flub it. Dimitra, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dimitra. I co-lead Sure People. We've been partnered, just in a lovely partnership with Johns Hopkins for several years now. I have, I don't know, over 25 years in the leadership and learning and development space and background in business and organizational communication. I'm really excited about this topic, which I've become enamored of actually through COVID over the last period of time. So thank you, Rich, for the invitation to come and join you today on this session.
That's great. You'll see why I invited Dimitra on the next slide. So last week, Carolyn did a great job of talking with us about the difference between sharing and gossiping, which is related to this week's topic of mood contagion. So the spreading of moods can be looked at both from a social climate perspective, how the mood of a group of people is part of social climate, and you as a leader have a disproportionately large influence on that mood. And Dimitra is going to spend the next few slides telling you more about this topic.
All right. So this topic of mood contagion. So this comes out of all of the forward now decades of research on emotional intelligence. Some of you may be actually familiar with this. And it's actually a thing. It's a real thing that we all experience as human beings. And there are two parts to it. There's a sort of neuroscience, brain and emotional center part to it. And there's also a behavioral part to it. And so we're going to talk about both of those aspects today in our session. So let's go first with the kind of scientific part of it, or the brain part of it. So our emotions exist in a part of our brain called the limbic system, which more easily is known as sort of open loop. What does that mean? Well, it's an evolutionary thing that's happened for human beings, which means we as social animals, right, as human beings, have an open loop on our emotional states, which means we can key into other people's emotions very easily. So the most concrete example I guess I would give of this is if you're a parent and you have a child or a baby that's crying, you can tune into that child's emotional state to say, okay, I need to go soothe the child, right? That same reality holds true for us in our everyday interactions with other people, both for positive and for negative emotions. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So the brilliance of it is it allows us to key into what's happening. The challenge of it is it means we have to become much more conscious of our own internal world. Right. So the second part of this, I'll just say, is fast brain, slow brain. Our emotional center works a lot faster than we're able to put words to things. So, the key to this is to understand that you may be feeling a certain way. And when you have that experience of I just can't put words to how I'm feeling. I just have this gut reaction to something and I need a minute. That's because your brain needs to catch up to be able to articulate what are the emotions that you're feeling. So where do these things typically live? The most visibly for us in meetings and interactions, any kind of one-on-one conversation that you're having, right? And here's the beauty. There is good news in here, but let me give you the example of the meeting. I know we've all experienced this. Have you ever experienced you walk into a group of people and they're all chatting away and everything's good, whether it's online or whatever, and you show up and somehow all the energy shifts?
Yes, I've been that person who showed up and everybody stopped talking.
Me too. And you're like, what's going on, right? What's wrong with everybody? Well, it's because you could be carrying a mood from a previous interaction or conversation that you had into this next interaction. And people are tuning into that non-verbally, right? And you're not 100% aware that you're transmitting it. Then if you layer on the fact that as a leader, people are actually looking to you for guidance and information and direction, right? Their mood is going to start to follow yours. So yours becomes magnified and even more contagious. But there is good news here. The good news is positive emotions travel faster than negative emotions. So you can spot it. If you know it, you can spot it and you can go, oh my goodness, I'm having an impact. Let me just slow down for a second. There are a couple of strategies that there are actually 3 things that I want to share with you that you can do to actually impact this when you spot it. So number 1, the first thing is to actually recalibrate how you're feeling. So if you just came out of a difficult conversation or meeting or something, just say to yourself, okay, let me take a breath. Let me just get myself kind of recalibrated or rebalanced before I go into the next interaction I'm about to have. The second thing I want to share with you is focus on the future, right? So where am I going? What's the next thing I'm going into? Not where did I just come from and what am I carrying with me? And then the third thing is, guess what? You can actually borrow other people's brains. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually a very real strategy. So the way, and I know, Rich, this links to some other topics that you all have been focused on in past sessions. So I'm going to leave that to you to kind of bring up. But basically what that means is you can, if you come into a situation where you're feeling very stressed or anxious, or you just came out of a very difficult discussion and you know you're carrying that state of mind or that emotional mood with you, you can actually say to people, hey, can I borrow your brains? I actually need, I need like some positive energy. You guys all seemed like you were in a good state of mind and I want some of that.
That's interesting that, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Those
I can
basically
interrupt
those
you.
3 things, please.
Okay, so the first one you said about taking a breath, we actually did have a session on breathing a long time ago, earlier in the year. So yes, that resonates. And then this most recent suggestion you had about borrowing the brain, it kind of resonates with me from an episode we had on vulnerability. So you walk into this meeting, you're in a not great mood, and instead of trying to ignore it, I think what I'm hearing you say is, hey, maybe just tell the folks in the room, hey, I'm not in a great mood and I'm wondering if you could support me by lifting the spirits. Is vulnerability like one of the right ways to look at it?
Totally. And it's not like you have to give them the details, right? But people get it. They get it. They know that life isn't perfect. We're all adults here. We're all here to support each other. And here's the thing, human beings actually really want to help each other, and gratitude and feeling like you can impact somebody in a positive way is actually a very positive and rewarding experience for the person giving the support, right?
Awesome. Let's go to our tips.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so agenda tip number 48. Wow, we're on 48. Okay. So we just kind of reflected on this at the beginning of the meeting. You, as leading the meeting, you may want to ask the people who you're meeting with how they're doing. Have an open-ended question, perhaps, to give them an opportunity for anyone who's interested in sharing. And then for yourself, I don't think this is easy unless you're practicing. I know for myself, it wasn't until, I don't know, 5 or so, maybe 10 years ago, where I started regularly understanding what was going on inside of me. So checking in with yourself to see how you feel. Are you stressed? Are you sad? Are you angry? So that you can readjust if it's appropriate and you're interested and you know how, before you potentially spread that mood. All right, next week, Carolyn is back and she's going to be leading us on a session on cultural humility. And I think, Dimitra, we are at the next slide and we can call it a day. Why don't you just put the contact information on the last slide before we move on, and get your questions ready. Thank you, Dimitra. We'll shut the slides down and we'll go into Q&A.